Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube, and if you haven't noticed, over the last few years we really are living in a world that seems to be turning upside down. Everything that was once considered good, honorable, just, and pure has now been flip-flopped. The world tells us that things that we once thought were dark, evil, and wicked are good. And what many of us were raised into believe were good things, positive things, are wrong now, are dark, wicked, and wrong. So there's a few concepts that we're going to take a look at here, and I'm going to show you multiple examples of how I see that our world is really being turned upside down. This beast system is all about confusing us, confusing all of us to a point where we just give up. We give up on logic, reason, common sense, spiritual discernment. And once you no longer understand what a basic truth is, it's much easier for you to fall into that abyss. This realm we're in, this reality, our world, is literally run by black magic. And the so-called elite, even the shadow government, the real 1% that rules all, they understand this, and they put it into use. They control the 5 or 6 corporations that run everything in this world. And we understand this through the obvious occult symbolism so many of these corporations use. So their concepts filter down to the rest of us. It's very important to remember some of these concepts. A defining aspect of Satanism is the inversion of everything, turning everything upside down, backwards. Black is white, bad is good, wrong is right. This is why the inverted pentagram is such a popular satanic symbol. George Orwell touched on this in his novel 1984 when he wrote of the ruling class propaganda. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Even with mind control techniques, which were developed by the Nazis first in Germany and then later further developed at the CIA in America, they use satanic principles to confuse their victims. They tell them that pain is pleasure and pleasure is pain, and eventually they break the victims down so they can no longer distinguish between the two. So in speaking of these concepts, it should come as no surprise that we have to talk about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was born in 1875 and died in 1947. He is considered the 19th and 20th century chief archetype of divination, which includes communication with the dead. He's been referenced for years in writings from all kinds of occult lecturers, and occult followers and believers, high-level Satanists. He even shows up in pop culture in our modern age now. The stories about him are legion. His sexual and psychological exploits and experiments through divination almost become legendary. He was known as the Beast 666, and he was a very depraved man, and he served as a mentor to many, then and now. He belonged to an ancient pagan society known as the Order of the Golden Dawn and bears the highest title of Magus. This title is earned through ascension techniques, which he spoke of all the time in his writings. And when one arrives at them, these ascension techniques, through various pagan rituals, they've achieved the highest order of the occult brotherhood. So not only do all of these Satanists invert everything, there's also something called the lesson of reversal, or the occult law of reversal. As one of Crowley's chief insistences was that his followers learn and put this into practice. In the many various classes that he instructed in his home on the occult, he invariably instructed his multitude of students in this major law of Satanism. Those who want fame, power, spell-casting abilities, demons at their beck and call, and to recognize the God within, which is something they were all trying to achieve and find, as well as to know the past, present, and future, he extolled to his students that they must consistently, with intensity, practice talking in reverse speech, walking and thinking backwards, and playing records backwards. This is a form of divination. So you can find countless examples of what they call backmasking. You can look this up for yourself. I'm sure you've probably heard some of these yourself. And typically you'll find these messages hidden and coded in a lot of popular music. And typically, you'll find the artists that use backmasking are also connected to what we call Illuminati symbolism or satanic symbolism. And I have no doubt that that's not just some mere coincidence. And a classic, and at the same time very disturbing example of this is Obama's "Yes, We Can" speech. And you've probably heard about this before. If you play that backwards, it says, "Thank you, Satan." So I would implore you to look into this for yourself if you think it's ridiculous. There's apps you can get for your phone where you can change your voice and things like that and play things backwards, and give it a shot sometime. Just say "Yes, we can" in there and play it backwards, and it sounds exactly like "Thank you, Satan." And in keeping with the idea of inversion and the way that these high-level Satanists actually work, oftentimes they'll hide images right before our eyes as well, but they'll place them upside down. So this right here is the actual image of the Obama Hope poster, and they created this many years ago for his campaign. But take a good look at the imagery on his face and see if you can see any imagery there that seems to be upside down. So now maybe you can make the image out a little bit better. We actually inverted the image. We turned it upside down. Now on the left side of his face, you can see that red creature. Looks like a little devil or a demon. You can see the eyes up there at the top, the mouth open. Looks like a horn going on top of its head. You see the body going down, and it even looks like they put a little tail right there on the very bottom. So now we bring back the normal picture, right, the normal Hope poster, and you can clearly see that image there, right? And I think it's interesting that we see this image here with Obama, and of course with the "Thank you, Satan." So I think it's interesting because in this example around Obama alone, we can find both the reversed speech, the "Thank you, Satan," and we also find the inversion. We find the images upside down. And I'm certainly not saying that the artist purposefully placed that on there. Now, I don't know. Maybe he did. But I do think a lot of this stuff works spiritually. It works through people. Another example is Marina Abramovic. And of course, by now, most of you, at least that are watching my videos, have heard of a Marina Abramovic. And this right here is from one of her spirit cooking events. That's Lady Gaga next to her. And you can see the kind of disgusting stuff they're getting into there. They got the fake dead body, or at least we assume it's a fake dead body, and people seem to be feeding off of it. So once you look into Marina Abramovic, you'll realize this is a very high-level occultist and has a lot of understanding of the so-called mysteries. And she most certainly understands about Crowley's inversion of everything. So not only does she use the "I am" in her work, we also find her institute is the MAI, the Marina Abramovic Institute, and this is the "I am" in reverse. And while we're on that subject, I just want to show you another example of how I see everything kind of flipped upside down. But this past weekend, the movie Logan opened. I know a lot of people were really excited to see this superhero movie starring Hugh Jackman. And for many years, Hugh Jackman has earned the reputation as one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. I've seen this story over and over again about how much of a great guy that Hugh Jackman is, and this is what the world has sold us. But if he's really such a nice guy and, America's sweetheart, right, then what's he doing at one of these filthy and degrading spirit cooking events? And while we're on this subject, there's something else you can look into that's some really fascinating information, but you should look up the beginnings of Peter Pan. Of course, we have Hugh Jackman here, who starred in the recent version of Peter Pan, simply called Pan. But the story was originally written by James Matthew Barrie. Now, James Matthew Barrie had been accused by many people for being a pedophile because of his odd relationship with many children. Disney's whitewashed version of the character has toned down the sexual perversion but still retains the devil-like attributes, enticing the little girl in the story to leave her parents' authority and to go to a place with no rules. There is only one thing you have to do, he says, leave home behind and you can never come back. And that's the same lie that Lucifer told the angels in heaven. Don't you want to go to a place where you don't ever have to follow the rules? All you have to do is leave home behind and you can never ever come back. Pan's friends, not accidentally called the Lost Boys, inhabit an island called Neverland, where selfishness and do what thou wilt is the rule of the day, and it kind of sounds like a similar story where a bunch of pirates or lost angels inhabit the island in space called planet Earth. And we can further connect this back to Aleister Crowley. He died in 1947, and he had his followers burn his body to ashes as they read a poem he composed called A Hymn to Pan, Hymn, A Hymn to Pan. And Pan, of course, is the mythical musical god of sex of the fields in Greek mythology, part human, part beast. So let's take a look at some other examples in the world today of how our reality is literally being turned upside down. Everything's being inverted. One of the most obvious examples of this idea that's been playing out heavily, especially over the last few months, is the idea of fake news. Now, of course, fake news is one of those ideas that the mainstream put into effect. The mainstream news, run by this handful of corporations that don't have your best interest at heart, put this idea out that essentially anything that's not mainstream news is fake news. Meanwhile, practically every day that goes by, these mainstream news sources are getting busted for promoting what? Fake news. Our reality is being flipped upside down. There was once a time, long, long ago, where clowns were seen as something kid-friendly, something goofy and fun and silly, something to put a smile on your face. But in duality world, in the world of inversion, and all these things start coming into play, we no longer see clowns that way. Now we have sinister clowns scaring people in multiple states. Millions of people around the planet used to believe in being fruitful and multiplying, replenishing the earth, subduing it, and having dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air. And this is but one example, but now we have people who are literally throwing vasectomy parties. They're throwing vasectomy parties to celebrate a future without children. And as for the rest of the scripture that was connected to being fruitful and multiplying, perhaps this is the answer here. I've often wondered if there's a connection to that, the fact that people aren't being as fruitful and multiplying anymore, and at the same time we're having the mass animal die-offs that has quickly over the last few years become an actual epidemic. There was even a time long, long ago where we used to encourage little boys to be adventurous, to be strong. And now we're living in a time where universities are actually hard at work to purge male students of their, quote, toxic masculinity. Throughout history, in most stable societies, there was the concept of courtship before marriage. Sometimes this idea would extend into years of courting a woman before she would actually give you her hand in marriage. Then you could consummate the relationship and be fruitful and multiply. But now our societies have become so loveless. It's all about if it feels good, do it. Do what thou wilt. There's no more courting, there's no more dating. It's just getting right to the consummation. 50 sex crimes involving dating apps Tinder and Grindr reported to the Met Police in London in record year for offences. Crimes involving the apps have risen 2,000% in 4 years, according to Scotland Yard. So this is where we've arrived. This is what it all comes down to now. Predominantly basing your interest in somebody else on how they look. And typically these don't turn into long, loving relationships. This is hookup culture. We even find this, again, in this new loveless society, this new loveless world we're in. It's all about the hookup. As many sexual partners as they can get, dating apps fueling a rise in casual sex. And continuing with that theme, many of you may not remember a world before the internet. Now, I actually do. I'm probably showing my age a little bit here. But I remember growing up without the internet, without having cell phones that had the internet. By extension of that, coming up, we didn't have access to pornography the way that everybody does now. And this easy access to all kinds of pornography on the internet is truly destroying mankind. So now we have stories like this. Porn addiction is turning men into hopeless lovers who can't satisfy their partners. Men are spending so much time pleasuring themselves in front of internet porn that they are failing to learn how to please a lady. or much less how to love a lady. This upside-down reality is dehumanizing us humans. We even have stories like this. Microsoft says virtual reality will soon have the same mind-bending effects as LSD. Virtual reality technology will soon be so powerful that it will cause a drug-like hallucination. It may seem crazy to some of you younger people out there, but back when I was coming up and people around my age, we used to go outside and play. We used to interact with other kids. And now we have this. It certainly seems that Microsoft's prediction wasn't that far off. It's happening now. Kids are turning violent as their parents battle, quote, digital heroin addiction. And also related to this addiction now with this new generation in this inverted world, just 1 hour a day on social media makes teens miserable. And extending this theme just a little further, there was also a time, a long time ago, where it was only the elderly people that had to deal with certain issues, certain health issues. But now, in this inverted reality, we have more young people contracting old age conditions, including varicose veins, due to sedentary lifestyles. Young people are being treated for conditions commonly seen in the elderly, such as varicose veins, hemorrhoids, back pain, and knee joint problems. We love women for so many reasons. But of course, one of the most special things about a woman is that she can actually give birth to another human being. Though I still think that that's a beautiful thing, a woman actually giving birth, that is a beautiful gift. But even that has been perverted and distorted and inverted in this upside-down world. Because now we're living at a time where a man can give birth to a child. Now, of course, these men were born female. They're still giving birth, but they look like men. Welcome to a reality that's been turned upside down. Even with entertainment, I mean, over the years, television has really revealed itself for what it is, and it is a massive control mechanism. This is why they call it programming. You are being programmed. We are being programmed. However, even in this upside-down world, it's really gone off the rails. The kind of programming they're giving us now has taken on a whole new level. For instance, right here, in keeping with the idea of the hookup culture, the oversexed culture, we now have this television show here. Strangers strip off and jump into bed together in a quest to find love. Or even worse, we have this new reality show coming from Russia, the real-life Hunger Games. Sick rules for bonkers new Russian reality TV show allow contestants to fight, rape, and even murder each other. I mean, you can even see this inversion when you look at kids' meals, right? All kinds of kid meals from different fast food restaurants typically will have toys in the meals for children. And it's been this way for many, many years. But now, in this flipped upside down reality, we have fast food restaurants putting sex toys in adult meals. Not for children, but for grown-ups. And here's just another prime example of somebody who's been completely dehumanized by this beast system. So dehumanized, they spend $50,000 on over 100 procedures to transform into a, quote, genderless alien. And if you follow my channel, you know I'm not into the idea of extraterrestrials. I believe these are the fallen ones, the fallen angels. I believe the whole idea of them being extraterrestrials is just a cover that the world provides. So behind the scenes, these spirits of these fallen angels help to run everything. And the so-called elite at the top of the pyramid commune with these things. So isn't it interesting that now we have human beings who are going through these procedures to become one of the fallen, to look like one of the fallen. Fallen humanity, fallen mankind. It takes on a whole new meaning, doesn't it? These are examples of the kind of confusion that this world is filling all of our heads with. This is what happens when our world is literally being turned upside down. What was once good is now bad, what is once bad is now good. And it leaves people confused. Well, don't you worry, the world has an answer for this. Transhumanism and augmented reality. This is going to be the future of mankind. This is what the world is creating for us. We have the confusion now. Where do we go from here? As they dehumanize us humans, they are going to be plugging us in to the matrix, so to speak. Augmented reality, virtual reality. This is the future of mankind. And if you think their control mechanisms through television, entertainment, mass media news, if you think that that was effective, just wait until they literally start plugging people in to a virtual matrix. And of course, there was once a time where we wanted to protect the children. We tried to protect their innocence. We tried to protect their purity. But now, in a wicked world that's been turned upside down, we have people in the government who recently legalized child prostitution. So these were some of the examples I wanted to share with you and show you the reality of where we're at. Show you that our reality has literally been turned upside down in so many different ways. We hear it all the time, you have to unplug, you need to wake up, but you really do. We all need to, and we have to maintain that. It's easy to slip back into this really filthy system. Stay aware of these things. Never forget what really matters. I'm not much of a preacher, I've never claimed to be, but I truly believe that the one anchor we need in a world that's flipped upside down is our spiritual anchor. By that I mean a relationship with the Almighty, the Most High, the Lord God. A connection to our Heavenly Father through His Son, Jesus Christ. This world's becoming so much more deceptive, and whether you believe the way I believe or not, I hope that you're truly seeking out what's real, what's good, what's honest, what's pure. And I'll leave you with that. I thank you all once again for watching my videos, for sharing, liking, and all the rest. I hope this video helps you. So until next time, take care out there, guys, alright? And I'll talk to you real soon.